Hey guys, welcome back to Storytime with Mr. Isaiah. We are finishing up Sink or Swim and starting chapter 26 today. So if you are behind, feel free to go back and get caught up and then join back up with us today. Chapter 26. The next day, Diego, who was on watch, saw something on the horizon. A speck. Everybody jostled everybody else as we all tried to get in a position to see. Chief Kerr pulled out the binoculars and studied it. Waves erased whatever it was, then revealed it again, then erased it again. Finally, he figured it out. It was the Germans, he said, handing the binoculars to the guy beside him so he could look too. What Germans? Diego asked. The ones in the inflatable life raft? Chief said. The ones we let paddle away? Guess they didn't paddle far enough. Or maybe they just managed to paddle themselves in a big circle. Over the next couple of hours, the life raft slowly came closer, and as it did, I felt anger burning me up inside. These were the Germans who kept us distracted while their officers down below set explosives in their U-boat. The explosives that killed Woody. The explosives that killed half our crew. I wasn't the only one getting angry. We ought to kill them, Strobe said. They were the first words he'd spoken in a couple of days. I hope the wind or waves will keep pushing them closer to us, pushing us closer to them, pushing us together so we can shoot every last one of them. Chief Kerr stood up in the bow and glared at Strobe. Other men were nodding at what he had just said, and Chief glared at them too. They're unarmed, he said. You all saw them when they paddled off in their inflatable. They barely had any supplies with them. What do we do then, Chief? Strobe asked. Suddenly the most talkative man on the boat. What if they want some of our rations, some of our water? We don't have enough, Diego said. We can't share with them. We'll all die out here. Them and us. So we shoot them and put them out of their misery, Strobe said. The Germans were maybe 100 yards away now. Chief Kerr handed out weapons and ammunition to several guys. 5 rifles and a couple of handguns, just in case. And nobody does anything unless I give the word. So what are we going to do with them, Chief? Benji asked. You never said. I don't know, Chief Kerr said. I don't know, but we don't shoot, and that's an order. The Germans were maybe 50 yards away now. There were only half a dozen of them, though there'd been probably twice that many when they left the damaged U-boat and paddled away on their raft. The ocean was growing rougher, rocking us harder, but bouncing them around a lot worse. Hold steady, Chief said. Let them draw next to us, and we'll see what they want. But Strobe wasn't going to wait. He lunged over to Connor, the man closest to him with the rifle, and grabbed it. Then he shoved past a couple of guys to the side of the boat and took aim at the Germans. Strobe, don't, I shouted. What are you doing? Don't touch me, he said. I'll shoot their boat if anybody touches me. Chief told the guys to pull back, though there wasn't much space for us to go. Then he addressed Strobe. Sailor, you need to lower that weapon right now, he barked. I can't, Chief, he said. They killed my friend. They killed all of our friends. This is war. Isn't this what we're supposed to do? Kill the enemy? He was crying, but kept the rifle aimed at the Germans. They saw what he was doing, and all raised their hands in surrender. Shooting them won't bring anybody back, Chief said. You know that. War isn't about killing men. It's about fighting for a cause. These men already surrendered. Don't make yourself a murderer. That's what they do. That's not what we do. I don't care, Strobe said. I don't care about anything. He swayed, staggered as a wave rocked the boat, then righted himself. He kept his aim the whole time. Strobe, it was me speaking, but the sound of my own voice surprised me. Strobe, it's me, I said. You know Woody was my friend too. I miss him too. I miss all of the guys, the same as you. We all do. But this isn't the way to fix things. Then what is it? He said. What? I don't know, I said softly. But those guys over there, those German sailors, you know, you could have been one of them if your parents hadn't left Germany, hadn't come to America, and if you had been born there instead of born here, you could have been one of them. You would have been a Nazi. I know you would. But it's got to be the same there as it is here. You have to follow your orders. Those guys over there that you want to shoot, they were following their orders. They didn't have a choice. I paused. If it had been you, you wouldn't have had a choice. So if you shoot them, it would kind of be like shooting yourself or any of us. Strobe was crying so hard now that he probably couldn't see anything on the German's lifeboat. He lowered the rifle. Somebody grabbed it out of his hands. His legs gave out, and he sagged back down into the boat, and it was over. We ended up giving the Germans some of our water and some of our fish. Speaking through one of the Germans who knew a little English, his name was Franz, Chief Kerr managed to get across that they could either stay tied up to us and be taken prisoner when and if we were ever rescued, or they could go back out on their own. Franz rubbed a hand over his blonde crew cut, looked around at the rest of his crew, and said they would stay and be our prisoners. He said they hadn't had any water in 3 days and hadn't eaten in more than a week. Chief ordered a couple of the crew to tie their raft to our boat, with about 20 yards between the two boats. He gave them fishing line and a bucket and one of our tarps. We'll share what we can after this, he said through the translator. An hour later, after everything calmed down, Chief Kerr made his way over to where Strobe and I were. Strobe hadn't said anything since giving up the gun. I had my hand on his shoulder to let him know I was there and that I was his friend no matter what. Crouching next to him, Chief looked hard at Strobe until Strobe lifted his head. Son, what you did was wrong, he said. An order is an order, and it's your job, your duty to follow orders. I don't care how bad you're hurt or how bad you miss your friend or what those Germans did to us. I don't care about none of that. You understand? Yes, Chief, Strobe whispered. We all feel the same way. You weren't the only one that wanted to shoot those Germans. But it's not who we are, and it's not what we do. It's not the American way. Simple as that. This time Strobe struggled to sit up so he could look at the Chief Kerr the way he was supposed to when a petty officer gave an order to a seaman second class. I understand, Chief, he said, and I am sorry. Chief Kerr put his hand on Strobe's other shoulder and squeezed it gently, the way my dad used to do when he was still with us, when I messed up and Dad needed to set me straight about something. Nothing more we need to say about this, then, Chief said. There's not going to be a report on it. What happens out here in this lifeboat, it stays out here in this lifeboat. I just need you to be strong and be the best sailor you can be until we get rescued. Can I count on you for that? Yes, Chief, Strobe said. After Chief Kerr left, Strobe whispered to me, I don't know what came over me, Danny. I just don't. Except I couldn't stop thinking about Woody down there in the engine room. Our brave pal, Woody. And the way he might have died down there. And all the stuff we went through together. And me and him. And what a good guy he was. I know, I said. It's the same for me. It's the same for all of us. I don't blame you for what you did, or what you almost did. Nobody does. Strobe nodded. Then he said, I hate this war. I almost said, we all do. But I didn't need to. He knew. 2 days later, a Navy destroyer spotted us. It was our same convoy returning to America, so we'd managed to keep close enough to the shipping lane after all. They said they had been able to search for us. They said they hadn't been able to search for us when our ship sank because while we were fighting the U-boat, they were half a dozen other coordinated U-boat attacks all along the flanks of the convoy. All the PCs and corvettes and the other destroyer had been busy fighting off the rest of the wolf pack. The battle had gone on for hours, the convoy continuing forward the whole time. The good news was they had been able to protect most of the cargo ships and deliver them safely to England to support the war effort. The other good news was they had a surgeon on board, the destroyer, and he would be able to operate on my leg. Strobe stayed by my side when they carried me down below. Don't worry, Danny, he said. I'll be right here with you. I'll make sure they take good care of you, and you make it home safely. And that's the end of chapter 26. So tomorrow will be chapter 27, obviously, and it's the last chapter of the book. I'm really anxious to find out what happens and to see how it ends. I don't know about you guys, but this book has really set an emotional tone with me because anything to do with the war always does. Anything that reminds me of what our forefathers have gone through to make this a free country for you and I. I love you guys. Have a great day.